Now let's have a look at the case that Prosecutor Chuck Graham did recuse himself from. And remember Lonoke County Sheriff's Department Deputy Michael Davis, who, as we saw earlier, was part of Kelly Campbell's 2014 arrest, where she was caught with a bunch of morphine pills? Well, on June 23, 2021, he shot and killed 17-year-old unarmed teenager Hunter Brittain.
Breaking news at this hour. We continue to follow a shooting that happened in Lonoke County with a deputy involved overnight. Mandy Noel is live off Highway 89 with what we need to know. Mandy, what do we know right now?
We've been learning more almost every hour, and just within the last hour, family confirms 17-year-old Hunter Brittain was shot and killed right here off Highway 89 in Lonoke County. A Lonoke County Sheriff's deputy was trying to pull him over. We're going to get into those details in just a second, but his family gave us a picture. This is 17-year-old Hunter Brittain. He was a father of two. Now, this all happened around 3 a.m. this morning at Mahoney's Body Shop here off of Highway 89. We want to say there's a lot of speculation online. We're reporting from the Sheriff's Office what it's releasing to us and what we know from Brittain's family. The Sheriff's Office says Arkansas State Police is handling the investigation. The owner of Mahoney's spoke with me off camera earlier today. He says his nephew was working here at the shop with Brittain overnight. They were working on Brittain's truck, trying to fix it up. Brittain took it for a test drive over on 89, which we're right off of. The deputy, at some point, the owner says, tried to pull him over. Arkansas State Police are conducting this investigation, but this was a Lonoke County Sheriff's deputy. The Lonoke County Sheriff's Department earlier said there was a traffic stop. It was a deputy-involved shooting. The shop owner says at some point they ended up here in the parking lot. We don't know exactly what happened, but at some point the deputy shot Brittain. The deputy was not hurt. The shop owner says he lives right by here. He heard the shots. He knew his nephew was over here. And to give you a look, he says this is the truck that they've been working on through the night. The truck was over here when it happened. He says Hunter was laying down when the owner came over here. They were trying to give him CPR. He was on the ground. They actually took him in an ambulance at some point, and we did learn just a little while ago that Hunter Brittain did pass away from his injuries. We are continuing to look into the developing details. I've been on the phone with the Sheriff's Office and the Arkansas State Police all morning. I haven't been able to get a hold of the Arkansas State Police. I just hung up a couple minutes ago with the Sheriff's Office. The sheriff tells me you got to check if you want body camera video, because that's what I was asking about. He said you've got to check with Arkansas State Police. We've turned everything over to them. It is now an Arkansas State Police investigation. As for this family, they're devastated. I was talking to the shop owner. He said, you know, my nephew's in shock. My nephew wasn't in the car with him, but it's really hard to wrap our minds around what happened here. Just a tragedy. We are going to continue following up on this story on air and online, and you'll see the latest coverage on our evening shows. For now, live in Lonoke County, I'm Mandy Noel. Back to you.
Good afternoon, and thanks for watching THV 11 News at Noon. I'm Michael Aaron, in for Amanda Yeager. Lots of breaking news to get to, and we start in Lonoke County. The community is looking for answers after a teen was shot and killed by a sheriff's deputy early this morning. Jordan Howington is near Highway 89 where that incident happened. She's live with what we know right now. Jordan.
Hey, good afternoon, Michael. Yeah, so what we know so far is that a Lonoke County deputy made a traffic stop early this morning around 3 a.m. and ultimately that traffic stop ended in gunfire. Now, according to family, the 17-year-old Hunter Brittain was shot and killed during a traffic stop. We are told he was working on the transmission in his truck at a nearby body shop, which is owned by a friend's family. He and that friend took the truck for a test drive, and before making it back to the shop, his family says that's when Brittain was pulled over and shortly after shot and killed. Now again, Arkansas State Police has taken over this investigation. We do not know what led up to that shooting as of yet. I did speak with Lonoke County Sheriff John Staley, who says the deputy involved did have access to a body cam. However, he is not sure if it was recording at the time of this incident. Now, of course, we are staying in close contact with the Arkansas State Police and the Sheriff's Office. We'll have the latest on this investigation tonight on THV 11 at 5 and 6. Michael, back to you.
I just miss him so much already, and I just don't know how I'm going to get through this.
A family grieving and a community with questions. People in Lonoke County are trying to figure out how a traffic stop led to the shooting death of a teenager. THV 11's Ashley Godwin talks to family and friends of Hunter Brittain as they try to find out where it went wrong.
After Hunter's death, the hashtag Justice for Hunter started spreading on social media, which led to this crowd here at the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office, where the sheriff is answering questions about his death.
Yeah, I want to know why the officer is not in jail until they find out more stuff. Why?
Yep, I was thinking the same thing.
Why? I mean, he gets to go home to his family. I don't get to come home.
A mixture of emotion, and I understand the anger.
17-year-old Hunter Brittain was shot and killed Wednesday morning by a Lonoke County Sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop. The deputy, Sergeant Michael Davis, pulled him over along Highway 89 near Cabot around 3 a.m. The family says Hunter took his truck for a test drive after working on the transmission at a nearby body shop.
I don't know exactly what occurred, but we will get to the bottom of it. State police, I trust them. They're very professional.
I know it's tough not getting answers. We don't have the answers right now, but it's going to come out.
The investigation was turned over to the Arkansas State Police, including the body camera that Sergeant Davis was wearing. The sheriff was not able to confirm if it was recording at the time.
I feel like we should have more answers. There should be more training.
ASP has not released why the teen was pulled over or what led up to the shooting. Family is just seeking closure and wants a fair investigation.
He was amazing. He was a good kid.
He was good to everybody. He was good to everyone around him. Even if you didn't see him much, you knew that he was around and he was a good person.
We just want justice.
In Lonoke County, Ashley Godwin, THV 11 News.
Sergeant Davis has been a deputy with Lonoke County since 2013. He is currently on administrative leave until the Arkansas State Police completes its investigation. The prosecutor will decide whether to file any criminal charges over the use of deadly force, and THV 11 will continue to follow this story and bring you all major updates. Developing news this evening, the Lonoke County Sheriff has issued a statement following the death of 17-year-old Hunter Brittain, who was shot and killed by a deputy during a traffic stop early yesterday morning. Sheriff John Staley says he wants to know exactly what led to that shooting, but also wants transparency and accountability. That's why he's asked the Arkansas State Police to handle the investigation.
State police are gathering the facts. They know much more than I do. We immediately gave them body camera footage because we aren't handling the investigation. We don't know how much of the incident was captured by the camera. As sheriff, I'm committed to transparency. That's why I will support the public release of body camera footage when the law and state police investigation allow.
Sheriff Staley urged people to wait for all the facts before rushing to judgment. He also promised that any deputies who violate the law or his policies will be held accountable. Stay with THV 11 and THV11.com for the very latest on this investigation.
So Hunter was working on the transmission of his truck, trying to fix it before he had to go to work at 6 in the morning. And his friend, 16-year-old Jordan King, was helping him. And to note, the news agencies at this point in time said he was the only witness that was there. But this is incorrect. At this point, they didn't know there was another witness, the body shop's owner's nephew, 20-year-old Landon Crowder, who was also helping the boys fix the transmission, and also saw and heard everything that happened. Hunter's friend, Jordan King, who was in the passenger seat with Hunter, goes on to explain what happened, saying Hunter got out of the truck to get a jug of antifreeze to put against the wheel to prevent the truck from rolling back into Officer Davis's patrol truck. And Jordan King says that Officer Michael Davis didn't say a word and just simply shot Hunter dead. They didn't say one word that I know of. I didn't hear it, and it happened so fast, King said. Officer Michael Davis would later testify that he was yelling commands for Hunter to get back in the truck and show his hands to him, and that Hunter ignored his commands, and Officer Davis feared for his life, so he shot him. Hunter Brittain wasn't carrying a weapon of any kind, except for a blue jug of antifreeze, I suppose. Staley released a video on Facebook earlier in the day saying that he's provided state police with body camera footage of the shooting, and he also said he isn't sure how much of the incident was captured on camera. Really? He doesn't know how much of it was captured on the body cam? It takes minutes to plug in and have a look. And he didn't do that before handing it over to the Arkansas State Police? Anyways, notice on the headline it says that it's the second night of protests, and this is the day after Hunter Brittain was killed. And the protests are just starting, and the issue of the body cam would continue to surface.
Calls for justice continue in Lonoke County for a teenager shot and killed by a sheriff's deputy 1 week ago today. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Marlisa Goldsmith.
And I'm Craig O'Neill. Hunter Brittain's death has gained national attention, and now his family is getting some well-known legal representation.
THV 11's Ashley Godwin brings us the latest from Lonoke County.
It's been a week and people are still gathered outside of the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office to mourn Hunter, but the family says they have plans and the funeral coming up.
Justice for Hunter!
Change is coming, that's right.
Yeah. And it's not just justice for us, it's justice for everybody.
Everybody.
17-year-old Hunter Brittain was shot and killed by Lonoke County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Davis last week. Hunter's family is preparing to lay him to rest, and they're also getting ready for the legal battle to come. The family has hired Devin Jacob and Benjamin Crump to represent them. Both were lawyers in George Floyd's murder case.
We've seen what they've done on TV. We know that they can handle the business that needs to be taken care of here.
Arkansas State Police are in charge of the investigation after it was handed over from the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office. The body camera footage went with it, and the family says they still don't know if the camera was turned on.
We haven't got any answers.
The family knows the process ahead of them is long, but they say they're hopeful Hunter's death will create change.
One life is too many. Yep. I mean, it shouldn't have had to happen. But it happened for a reason, and we're going to show what that reason was.
Do our best to change the world and how these officers conduct themselves.
In Lonoke County, Ashley Godwin, THV 11 News.
Body cams are a good thing because they increase transparency between the police agency and the public.
But for Hunter Brittain's family, they feel this transparency has been denied after the teen was shot and killed by a Lonoke County deputy last week during a traffic stop. We know the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office handed over body cam footage. However, we don't know what parts of the incident were captured.
I can understand why they may be doing some further investigation with regard to a video. However, I do find it quite odd that they're not at least acknowledging that a video of the incident exists.
Patrick Benka has practiced criminal defense for more than 20 years. He is on the side that believes the Brittain family should have already seen what happened to Hunter.
There has been shooting incidents here in Arkansas where the tape was released in short order. And in those cases, the officers at least had a defense.
UA Little Rock criminal justice professor Jim Golden has researched the use of body cams. He says releasing that evidence too early could jeopardize the investigation.
That video footage shows one view. You know, there's just a whole lot more questions that have to be answered.
While Golden suggests Hunter Brittain's family be patient and let the investigation play out, Benka sees a lack of consistent transparency within agencies across Arkansas when it comes down to releasing body cam footage.
It won't hinder an investigation. It will cause problems for the agency if the tape recording reveals something, one, that the officer that's untrue, or corroborates the family's version and I guess the friend in the car's version of that. You know, he was carrying, a bottle of oil.
So it's been a week since the killing of Hunter Brittain, with no answers coming out, and the body cam footage ramping up to become a hot topic. And finally, Sheriff John Staley would make a public announcement.
I want to talk directly to the people of Lonoke County. You have a right to know the latest about the Hunter Brittain matter. There's a lot of noise, misinformation, and downright lies on social media, so I'll set it straight. There are two issues here. First, did the deputy act legally? That's up to the Arkansas State Police and the prosecuting attorney. I have nothing to do with it, nor should I. That's the whole point behind an independent investigation. People who think that determining whether this deputy acted legally is somehow my decision either don't understand the law or they're just trying to make trouble. The second issue is something I do have control over, whether this deputy remains employed here. Here's my decision, and I'm basing it on transparency. I gave my deputies body cameras. I directed them to use the body cameras properly. Our policy says the deputy must activate the camera before encountering any member of the public while taking official action, and certainly as part of any traffic stop. My review of this deputy's actions has determined that he did not activate his body camera in a timely way. This means there is no video of the actual shooting. We see the aftermath, but not the shooting. Due to that failure, I have terminated the employment of this deputy.
So there's no body cam footage until after the shooting? Seriously? Or did they just delete that part of the footage? And he fired Davis for not turning his body cam on? Really? I mean, I would have fired him for panicking and shooting an unarmed teen who posed no threat to anyone. But we'll come back to that in a bit. On Tuesday, July 6th, the funeral for Hunter Brittain took place.
Now we're turning to THV11's Jordan Howington.
She is reporting tonight from that BB Auditorium on the funeral service today. Jordan?
Hey, good evening, you guys. Yes, this auditorium was packed today with family and friends paying tribute to Hunter. And yes, Al Sharpton, two attorneys, prominent attorneys, joining in, speaking here, also seeking justice for Hunter Brittain.
Hunter Brittain, life matters!
Hunter Brittain's life matters. That's the words of a chant led by Ben Crump, a well-known civil rights attorney.
You're loved. Your family will not stop advocating until we have justice for you, Hunter.
Friends and family gathered to remember Hunter, who lawyers say is the unarmed 17-year-old who was shot and killed by Lonoke County Deputy Michael Davis during a traffic stop nearly 2 weeks ago. Reverend Al Sharpton flying in, showing his support while standing alongside the Brittains as they fight for answers.
Wrong is wrong whether you have on blue jeans or blue uniforms. Wrong is wrong is wrong is wrong.
We sat down exclusively with the family's lawyer, Ben Crump, who also represented George Floyd's family after he was murdered by the hands of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. He said Tuesday is about remembering Hunter, while moving forward is about justice.
And it is shameful that he did not turn on his body camera video so we could see what happened, but it is more shameful that he killed an unarmed teenager, and as we often talk about, he had not identified a threat.
Crump's partner attorney Devin Jacobs says while they are working to contact Arkansas State Police, who's investigating Hunter's death, they are also working to file litigation.
Along with Ben Crump, and we'll file litigation pursuant to Civil Rights Act, and that will be for violations of the Fourth Amendment for taking somebody's life using objectively unreasonable force. And we absolutely expect to hold this officer and frankly, this sheriff responsible as well.
The shooting and killing of Hunter Brittain was already a developing story in the national news media across the country. And when you add Ben Crump and Al Sharpton into the mix, then of course that spotlight's only going to increase. And so would the protests.
Hey, Rolly and Marlisa. Yeah, right now we're out at the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office, and this is where that group that was at the funeral made their way to after that funeral was over. They've been here for multiple nights now protesting the death of 17-year-old Hunter Brittain. Now, I did have the chance to catch up with some of Hunter's classmates who told me they wanted to remember how he was to them. They say he was a kind, well-liked young man who's just gone too soon.
I don't think Hunter would have expected all these people to be here for him. I mean, he knew he had people that cared about him. He knew a lot of people loved him, but I don't think he would have expected all this. We're all here for a reason, and whatever his reason was, he completed it, and he touched a lot of hearts doing it.
And now their reason reads as clear as the words on their shirts: justice for Hunter.
I say that the criticism that he has today and will have forever is well justified for him.
We're not going to stop until we get something. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to get justice for the boy we loved and we all cared about.
And while they can't do anything to bring Brittain back, his classmates say they can start making sure he's not forgotten.
I pray for him every day. I hope justice is served, because firing that cop isn't what he needs. He needs criminal justice.
And that's exactly what the family's lawyer, Ben Crump, plans to pursue: criminal justice. even if he has to bring the case to the U.S. Department of Justice.
Although the Arkansas State Police is still investigating the incident that led to Hunter's death, the family's lawyers plan to fight hard to bring justice to them and Hunter. And although we did hear a little bit from them at Tuesday's funeral, they had much more to say about moving forward.
When we talk about George Floyd, life mattered. When we say Breonna Taylor, life mattered. We also have to say Hunter Brittain, life mattered.
Attorney Ben Crump has worked his way into the national Black Lives Matter movement. He's represented families like George Floyd's, who's lost a loved one to police brutality. But he now finds himself in small-town Arkansas, where he says the problem goes beyond skin color.
We all want our children to make it home and not be killed by the very people who are supposed to protect and serve them.
Crump expects a swift investigation as it remains in the hands of ASP. If not, he and his team will look to the Department of Justice to open up its own investigation. He plans to file a wrongful death lawsuit, but says without former Deputy Michael Davis's body camera footage that he failed to activate during the shooting, that will bring up critical issues.
Not only did he follow that policy, what other policies did he not follow? And it's going to be the crux of the matter. We believe that it is shameful.
Though the facts haven't been revealed.
We still don't have nothing. We're still worrying.
Hunter's family believes he was murdered after hearing the gruesome details from his friend who saw it all.
And these boys that know the story, they're not lying to me.
The facts are going to tell us everything that happened, and he should be charged to the greatest extent of the law.
The next week, Officer Michael Davis's lawyer would speak out.
Attorney for Sergeant Michael Davis, the Lonoke County Sheriff's deputy who shot and killed Hunter Brittain.
We're told Davis has requested a grievance hearing to be reinstated as a deputy at the sheriff's office. Channel 7's Mills Hayes joins us now from the Live News Center with the very latest in the case.
That's right, Chris and Beth. Attorney Robert Newcomb is representing former officer Michael Davis, and you guys actually might remember him. He was an attorney in another officer-involved shooting here in Little Rock. He represented former officer Charles Stark in the killing of Bradley Blackshire back in 2019. And Newcomb tells me that he was really shocked when he found out that Sheriff John Staley fired Davis for not having his body camera turned on when he fired shots at 17-year-old Hunter Brittain, saying that he did not follow department policy. Newcomb says Davis told state police he thought that his body camera was turned on when he pulled Hunter over. He claims Davis went through the motions of turning the body camera on, but it either malfunctioned or he didn't push all the buttons correctly. Unlike Little Rock police body cameras, which turn on when the car door opens, Lonoke sheriff deputies have to physically turn the cameras on each time. Newcomb says the problem is with the department's body cameras, which he says have a short battery life and not enough storage capacity. He says Hunter's death is a tragedy, but Officer Davis did not act deliberately. I spoke with Hunter's family as well, and they tell me they don't believe it.
Reaction is slower than action. So if you always wait till you actually see a gun in somebody's hand, you're probably going to be dead.
This guy sucks. By that logic, he thinks the cops should be able to shoot people before an actual threat is presented. And he thinks Officer Michael Davis shouldn't have been fired in such manner. Remember, Sheriff John Staley fired him for not activating his body cam in a timely way.
My review of this deputy's actions has determined that he did not activate his body camera in a timely way. This means there is no video of the actual shooting. We see the aftermath, but not the shooting. Due to that failure, I have terminated the employment of this deputy.
And I notice he likes to mention the word transparency.
We don't know how much of the incident was captured by the camera. As sheriff, I'm committed to transparency. Here's my decision, and I'm basing it on transparency.
Now, as I was reading throughout Facebook, I came across this rather interesting post, saying Officer Michael Davis had bought a personal dash cam, and Sheriff John Staley made him remove it, citing a breach of policy, which I do understand that. But Davis's department-issued body cam apparently didn't work properly, and they did nothing about it. And this was only days before the shooting of Hunter Brittain. And out of all the news media and articles that I've went through, this is the first I've heard of this. So I went to look some more to see if I could find anything else on that. And ironically, the only article I could find that talks about it was the print version media of the newscast we just saw with Michael Davis's lawyer, Robert Newcomb. He said that Davis originally had a personal dash camera on his police vehicle, but Sheriff John Staley ordered him to take it down. And I find it interesting that the television newscast mentions everything about the body cams that's in their accompanying print article, except the part about Davis's dash cam and Staley telling him to remove it. How come they didn't mention that on the newscast? Are they trying to protect Sheriff Staley's reputation or something? You won't find Sheriff Staley talking about it, of course, and that's not very transparent. Davis's lawyer, Robert Newcomb, also said that Sergeant Davis told Staley he thought he turned it on, and that either the camera malfunctioned or he didn't get all the things pushed. Now we'll have a look at some of the body cam footage they released, but just to give you an idea of where this took place. Hunter and Jordan were traveling down Highway 89 and heading back to Mahoney's body shop, having realized that there were still problems with the transmission. As they passed, Officer Michael Davis pulled out of a church parking lot and began following them and running the license plate. And I'm still not exactly sure why he decided to pull them over, as I've seen multiple different reasons, but he turned the lights on to pull them over as they were approaching Mahoney's body shop where they were working on the truck. And Hunter immediately hopped out of the truck to grab the jug of coolant from the back of the truck to place it behind the tire to stop his truck from rolling. And as Hunter did that, Officer Davis pulled in behind him with his alarm lights still on and hopped out of his truck and shot Hunter dead. He then proceeded to walk around the back of his truck, and it's at this point that we see the body cam footage begin.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Shots fired, SO. Shots fired. Don't move! Heads! Everybody in the vehicle, heads!
So that was Officer Davis yelling at Hunter's friend Jordan,
Don't move!
who was just a step behind Hunter and getting out of the truck. He said he got one foot on the ground and heard the gunshot, and turned, and through the open driver's side door, he saw Hunter fall to the ground.
106, you did state you had medical en route, correct? Don't move!
Hold on, 10, 106, 1050.
10-4, I got one other in the vehicle.
15, 106, you got units from Cabot head your way to.
10-4. God damn. Oh.
Something else to note is that during this whole time, as Officer Davis is waiting for backup to arrive, Hunter is still alive and bleeding out.
Oh.
No, we got so. What's the location? 89 South and Tower Loop.
Oh.
Yeah, boy. We know you. 400 Tower. Yeah, we'll take that.
Now you're about to hear Lonoke Sheriff's Deputy Nathan Rice arrive, and he'll begin yelling commands to Jordan King.
Let's get him, order him out of the truck.
Open the door! Step out facing away from me!
Oh.
We'll have a look at a little bit more footage, but overall, the footage runs for 18 minutes and 55 seconds in total. And it wasn't actually released until, fittingly enough, April 1st, 2022, or April Fool's Day.
Detain him, just detain him. The guy jumped out of the fucking truck and grabbed something out of the back of it, and it's a fucking oil can.
Well, what are y'all driving the vehicle like that? I mean, it's... Well, why'd he hop out of the truck and grab that? Didn't put the truck in park, nothing. Ah, damn. 106, we're 1050, notify chain of command, and we need medical now. We need to...
106, are you 215, are you still present to your scene?
We got one detained, the other subject's down. Dude. We gotta try to do something, dude. Man, why would he jump out of the back?
Davis, it's okay.
It's not okay, man. All right, roll him over on the side. Oh. Go back there.
So that was Deputy Rice, who just told Deputy Davis to, quote, go back there. And other deputies are just arriving at this point as well. And see the timestamp of Davis's body camera? When we look at his body cam footage at the very beginning, it starts at 08, 09, and 22 seconds, Zulu, and that's Greenwich Mean Time. So 8, 09 Zulu, or Greenwich Mean Time, is 3:09 in the morning in Little Rock, Arkansas. So that's what time it is at the very beginning of the body cam footage, 9 minutes and 22 seconds after 3 in the morning, which was mere seconds after Hunter Brittain was shot. Now what I find very troubling, and very depressing as well, is that where we just stopped the body cam footage, at 08:14 and 11 seconds, or 3:14 in the morning and 11 seconds, Deputy Rice is only just now going to begin to tend to Hunter Brittain. So that means that Hunter Brittain, still alive, was left laying there on the ground and bleeding out from his neck for over 4 minutes and 49 seconds before Deputy Rice began rendering aid to him. And of course I'm not a doctor, and I'm not making any accusations here either, but I can't help but wonder that if they acted immediately, instead of waiting 5 minutes or more to begin to tend to Hunter Brittain, might that have made a difference? As we can see from the coroner's report on Hunter Brittain, he didn't die until approximately 3:58 in the morning, almost 50 minutes after being shot. So I do wonder if during that first 5 minutes, if say Officer Davis even held a towel or something against Hunter's neck to slow down the blood loss while he waited for help, might that have made a difference? I guess we'll never know. Now let's have a look at Deputy Nathan Rice's body cam. He was the first deputy on the scene after Deputy Davis had shot Hunter, and he starts his body cam right before exiting his vehicle and begins to detain Hunter's friend, Jordan King. And keep in mind that Jordan just turned 16 years old earlier in June, and he said they both opened the doors of Hunter's truck at the same time to get out, and when he had one foot on the ground, he said he heard the gunshot, and he turned and looked through the still open driver's side door to see his best friend Hunter land on the ground with a flow of blood following him.
Open the door! Step out facing away from me! Back up to the sound of my voice! Okay, that's fine. Stop! With your right hand, grab the back of your shirt. Lift up. No, by the collar. Keep going. Higher. Turn. Spin around for me. Keep spinning. Keep spinning. Keep spinning. Stop. Come back to the sound of my voice. Come back. Come back. Come back. Stop. Get on your knees. Interlock your feet. Go 15 with him.
changed the transmission in it. That's why. Well, what are y'all doing in the vehicle like that? We in this shop.
Why did he hop out of the truck and grab that?
Lay down.
Didn't put the truck in park, nothing?
Because they won't go in park. The shifting linkage is messed up.
Sit back there.
We got one detained, the other suspects.
Come on, Davis, it's okay.
It's not okay, man. All right, roll him over on the side. Oh.
Go back there. He's still breathing. We need to start med flight. Yes?
Yes, yes.
110, start med flight.
Where's that?
I think one on the neck, maybe face, I'm not sure.
I imagine Hunter's friend Jordan King must have been terrified, especially in those first few minutes, and again when Deputy Rice had his gun pointed at him and yelling commands. At least we can see the footage of Deputy Rice giving commands in the process of detaining a subject, unlike Deputy Davis's body cam footage. And they kept Jordan King detained and in handcuffs for 3 hours. He should have been released as soon as the scene was secure. Now I noticed something else while reviewing the footage of the body cams from Deputies Davis and Rice. And remember we saw Deputy Rice tell Deputy Davis to go back there?
Go back there.
The timestamp on Deputy Davis's body cam says 8:14 and 10 seconds, Zulu. Now watching at that same point on Deputy Rice's body cam.
Go back there.
The timestamp reads 8:13 and 33 seconds, Zulu. So that's a difference of 37 seconds. How can that be? The whole point of using Zulu time, or Greenwich Mean Time, is for conformity and accuracy. It's what the military uses. And in our day and age of global positioning and satellite tracking and whatnot, how does two of the same body cams that are in the exact same area together produce two different timestamps? To me, it's yet another part of the body cam footage issue that's been part of the case from day one. A lot of people think that the footage was deleted because it showed that Deputy Davis in fact didn't say anything before shooting Hunter Brittain, as no matter the outcome, that would really give the Sheriff's Department a black eye. And it didn't help matters that right from day one and for the week that followed, every news report would remind the public that while body cam footage does exist, it's unknown how much of it was recorded. Almost as if prepping the public ahead of time to lessen the shock and outrage when they announced there's no footage.
Sheriff Staley says a deputy had access to a body cam. However, it's not confirmed if it was recording or not at the time of the incident.
We immediately gave them body camera footage because we aren't handling the investigation. We don't know how much of the incident was captured by the camera. As sheriff, I'm committed to transparency.
And the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office did hand off body cam footage to the state police. However, the Brittain family feels they have been denied this transparency. According to Sheriff John Staley, it's unclear when the camera was activated and if the incident was recorded or not.
We know the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office handed over body cam footage. However, we don't know what parts of the incident were captured.
Arkansas State Police are in charge of the investigation after it was handed over from the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office. The body camera footage went with it, and the family says they still don't know if the camera was turned on.
And of course, the next day, the public would finally learn that there's no footage.
And calls to release the body cam footage of the incident have been growing. But according to the sheriff, Davis only activated his body camera after the shooting happened, so there's no footage of the actual incident.
My review of this deputy's actions has determined that he did not activate his body camera in a timely way. This means there is no video of the actual shooting.
So overall, when it comes to the issue of the missing body cam footage, it seems to me that it could be one of three things. Law enforcement erased the missing footage because it showed one of its officers not giving any verbal commands before shooting and killing a kid. Or Deputy Davis, in fact, did not turn the body cam on until after he shot Hunter. Or Deputy Davis did turn his body cam on, but it wasn't working properly and it didn't actually begin recording until the footage we do see begins. And to be honest, I really don't know which to believe. Though taking everything into consideration, I do tend to lean a little bit towards the footage being erased. Now, going back to the week after Hunter's funeral, this is when we see the announcement that Lonoke County Prosecutor Chuck Graham recused himself from the case, and a special prosecutor will be appointed. And that special prosecutor would be Jeff Phillips, who is the prosecuting attorney for Arkansas's 5th District, which is made up of Franklin, Johnson, and Pope counties. And, as fate would have it, Jeff Phillips was appointed as special prosecutor by Judge Barbara Elmore. Of course. And Jeff Phillips would say he hasn't received the investigative file from the Arkansas State Police yet, but says he's expecting it within the next 10 days. And 17 days later, we can see the protests are still ongoing, and now they're marching on the state capitol in Little Rock.
The push for answers continues in the cases of 2 people who were shot and killed by law enforcement in Arkansas. Community leaders joined the family and friends of both Hunter Brittain and Marquis Martin today at the Capitol to demand answers in their deaths. Brittain was only 17 when he was shot and killed by a Lonoke County sheriff during an early morning traffic stop on June 23rd. 26-year-old Martin was found dead in a creek in Drew County last March after he was missing for almost a month. Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump spoke at today's protest.
And we come here together with several community leaders and state leaders to ask the simple question.
Yes.
What is the Arkansas state leadership doing to address the unjustified killings of our children?
So Marquis Martin went missing a year earlier in February of 2020, and his body was found a month later in March of 2020. And I found the newscaster's choice of words to be pretty interesting.
The push for answers continues in the cases of 2 people who were shot and killed by law enforcement in Arkansas.
She said 2 people who were shot and killed by law enforcement. But officially, Marquis Martin's murder remains unsolved to this day. And we'll have a peek at Marquis Martin's case in a bit. But remember we just saw Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips saying in the middle of July that he's expecting the investigative file within the next 10 days? Well, he only had to wait 2 days as he was given the investigative file on July 15th. And notice the headline mentions the recused prosecutor, who would be Chuck Graham. And this is a week after Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips got the investigative file. And the full headline reads, Recused prosecutor talked with investigators in deputy shooting of Arkansas teen Hunter Brittain. And right below that we see, in shooting case, office failed to quickly cut police contact. The Lonoke County Prosecutor's Office, i.e. Chuck Graham, had contact with the Arkansas State Police before and after recusing itself. And they say because of unavoidable conflict. And unfortunately, as I don't have a subscription, I don't exactly know what this unavoidable conflict is. But they're not supposed to do that. One might think the fix is in. And actually, one does think the fix is in. Because I'm one. Anyway, Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips got the investigative file on July 15th, and it's now up to him to make the decision whether charges should be made or not. And for some reason, it would take him a whopping 2 months to make up his mind.
Former Lonoke County Deputy Michael Davis is behind bars charged with manslaughter.
Sergeant Davis shot and killed Lonoke County teen Hunter Brittain in June following a traffic stop. Brittain was unarmed when Davis shot him, and the deputy's body camera was not on during the shooting.
Jordan Howington joins us tonight. She has more on the charges announced in the case today. Jordan?
Hey, William. Marlisa, Polk County Prosecuting Attorney Jeff Phillips was appointed special prosecutor in this case to make sure it was investigated fairly. And after months of reviewing the case, today, while the teen's family and friends crammed the hearing room, Phillips announced Davis will face a manslaughter charge in the death of Hunter Brittain.
What I'm going to do now is read to you the affidavit that was presented to a judge this morning with an arrest warrant for Michael Davis.
The courtroom filled with 17-year-old Hunter Brittain's family and friends, now filled with shouting in relief.
A month later, in November, Michael Davis would enter a not guilty plea.
The former Lonoke County deputy accused of shooting and killing an unarmed teenager, pleading not guilty at his pretrial hearing today. Thanks for joining us at 5. I'm Rolly Hoyt.
And I'm Marlisa Goldsmith. Michael Davis is charged with felony manslaughter in the death of 17-year-old Hunter Brittain. THV 11's Mercedes McKay joins us live from the courthouse with details on what comes next. Mercedes.
Rolly, Marlisa, Brittain's family tells me they weren't surprised by Davis's not guilty plea, but it still really hurt to hear those words. Now, not everyone was allowed inside the courtroom, but many of Hunter's friends and family stood outside holding signs and shouting justice for Hunter. The pretrial was quick and to the point, lasting only about 5 minutes. Davis pled not guilty and requested a trial by jury.
And the trial was set to begin on March 15th, 2022. And notice she mentioned not everyone was allowed into the courtroom, which were the first steps in removing public access to the trial. And 2 weeks before the trial, on March 3rd, Judge Elmore would seal the case file from the public. And look at the order. The court doth order that this case be sealed. Doth. Like we're still in 15th century England or something. I wonder if she wears one of those ridiculous wigs that they still wear in the British court system, too. And does she begin her trials with the customary, "Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay," which most people don't actually know is Pig Latin for yo yo yo. Know what I'm saying? Anyways, going through the article, we see the Lonoke County Circuit Judge issued an order sealing the entire case. Judge Barbara Elmore sealed the file, and the clerk said she did not know why the case had been sealed. Earlier court records, which were available on the state's online court filing system, Court Connect, have been removed from public view. So much for transparency. The former deputy, Davis, told state investigators that Brittain got out of his truck and then got something out of the back before approaching the deputy. And keep that in mind as we'll revisit that again. And as noted earlier, Davis is scheduled to stand trial on March 15th. The special prosecutor, Jeff Phillips, won't publicly talk about the case. And Michael Davis's attorney, Robert Newcomb, said that while there is not a formal gag order, he does not want to comment. Keeping in the spirit of the judge's order, I will not publicly comment about the case being sealed or the content of the file, Newcomb said. And now we go to March 14th, which was a Monday. And on Monday, the pretrial began in Cabot. Judge Barbara Elmore called the court to order shortly after 10 a.m. And Judge Elmore said a clerk will identify the names of jurors by number and will choose the 12 from a classified list. No plea deal was offered during the pretrial hearing, which is pretty interesting. And the trial is set to begin 9 a.m. Tuesday, the next day. And it would last all of 3 days.
Trial of former Lonoke County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Davis officially began this afternoon. It's a case that's gained national attention and one that has greatly impacted the community of Lonoke. Davis accused of killing and shooting 17-year-old Hunter Brittain last summer. THV 11's Mercedes McKay spent the day inside the courtroom. Mercedes, things are moving pretty quickly there.
Marlisa, I just stepped out of the courtroom. Like you said, they are moving quickly, but just 15 minutes ago, testimony ended for the day. Now, the jury was shown what body camera footage is had in this case, but that footage only shows what happened after Brittain was shot. Now, certainly that was really emotional for witnesses and the Brittain family. Many of them actually had to leave the courtroom because they just couldn't stand to watch it anymore. But the day started with jury selection, which took about 4 hours. The jury was asked a series of questions related to law enforcement and their opinions. Ultimately, the 12 jurors were seated, 9 women and 3 men, and then after there was a short break. Now, opening arguments finally started at 2:30. They lasted about 45 minutes, and then the first witness was called to the stand. Now, the first witness was 16-year-old Jordan King. He was the one that was in the car with Brittain the early morning hours of June 23rd, where this all took place. Now, the biggest part of King's testimony is that he said he never heard any verbal cues from Davis until after Brittain was shot. Now, that was kind of the biggest part of this, is that those verbal cues only happened after Brittain was shot. Now, this will continue tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Thanks for joining us tonight at 5. I'm Marlisa Goldsmith. We'll have a full report on the Caffey case coming up in just a moment. But first, the state has rested its case in the trial for a former Lonoke County Sheriff's deputy. Michael Davis is accused of shooting and killing 17-year-old Hunter Brittain during a traffic stop last June. THV 11's Mercedes McKay has been in the courtroom for us all day and joins us live now. Mercedes, what did you find out today?
Marlisa, as part of today's testimony, the jury was shown an hour-long interview Michael Davis had with investigators just 5 days after the shooting happened. Now, in this taped interview, Davis was really emotional as he happened to explain what happened in those early morning hours of June 23rd. Now, the biggest takeaway from that interview was that Davis claimed once he pulled Brittain over, he yelled at Brittain, quote, "Show me your hands." Davis says Brittain wasn't listening or acknowledging him and had both his hands in the bed of his truck. Davis said he thought Brittain was going to kill him, and that's why he fired his gun. Davis also said he believed he turned his body camera on and he didn't realize it until after the shooting. Now, Landon Crowder was the second witness called to the stand. He was working on Brittain's truck that night with him and stayed at the shop while the other two test drove it. Crowder says he stepped out of the shop and was able to see the blue police lights, heard the gunfire. Crowder testified that he never heard any verbal cues from Michael Davis until after the shots were fired. Now, also called to the stand later today was a medical examiner who confirmed that Brittain was shot in the neck. And the last person called to the stand was Chief John Staley, Michael Davis's former boss, and he actually told the jury that Davis has had issues in the past with turning his body camera on. Now, testimony will continue tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we will be right here laying it all out for you and giving you the details. Live in Cabot, Mercedes McKay, THV 11 News.
The fate of former Lonoke County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Davis is now in the hands of a jury. Davis is accused of shooting and killing 17-year-old Hunter Brittain during a traffic stop last summer. He actually took the stand today as his trial continues in Cabot. THV 11's Mercedes McKay has been covering this trial for us from the very beginning and brings us a live update tonight. Mercedes.
Marlisa, we actually just got word that they are going to continue with deliberation tonight. They brought in an alternate juror for that one juror that had a medical emergency, and they're going to try to make that decision tonight. Now, we did go through a lot today, like you mentioned earlier. The biggest thing was that Michael Davis took the stand. The jury learned the character of Davis, that he's a volunteer firefighter, a father, and has one child on the way. He says Hunter's truck smoking and being loud. The time of day was early morning hours, not listening to his commands, and not not being able to see both of Brittain's hands in the trucks were the reason he felt afraid for his life and thought Brittain was going to, quote, kill him. Davis got emotional multiple times during his testimony. Now, closing arguments lasted a little over an hour. The prosecution told the jury to look at the evidence, and if Davis was able to say, like he testified, to put your hands up to Brittain, then he had time to tell Brittain, I'm going to shoot you, which is what he was trained to do. The defense added the reasons why Davis was fearful for his life. Now, this really all comes down to, Marlisa, who the jury is going to believe, whether they believe Brittain's friends who were there and said they never heard commands from Davis before the shooting happened, or whether they are going to believe Davis, who testified that he told Brittain to go back into the truck and put your hands up. Now, like I said earlier, the jury is going into deliberation right now.
So we have two witnesses who said they didn't hear any commands or orders coming from Deputy Michael Davis before he shot Hunter Brittain, which should be pretty important, but ultimately it won't matter, as we'll see.
Davis claimed once he pulled Brittain over, he yelled at Brittain, quote, show me your hands. Davis says Brittain wasn't listening or acknowledging him and had both his hands in the bed of his truck. Davis said he thought Brittain was going to kill him, and that's why he fired his gun.
So according to Deputy Davis, Hunter Brittain had both of his hands in the bed of his truck when he shot him. But remember that report we saw earlier that said the former deputy told state investigators that Brittain got out of his truck and then got something out of the back before approaching the deputy. And that was from the same interview with investigators 5 days after the shooting happened. And we see something similar in the coroner's report under the investigator narrative. And the information comes from Special Agent Christina McGiven of the Arkansas State Police, who wasn't actually at the scene, but was given information from the Lonoke Sheriff's Department, which she relayed to the coroner, who put it into his report. And she advised the descendant, who was Hunter Brittain, got out of the vehicle and got something out of the back and started coming towards the sergeant. So that's two accounts telling the same thing, one from the coroner's notes written the day Hunter Brittain was killed, and the other account from state investigators during the interview with Davis 5 days after the shooting. And one big issue I have is how could Hunter Brittain have both his hands placed in the bed of his truck and be approaching or coming towards Deputy Davis at the same time? Hunter Brittain was only 5 foot 6 inches tall and 140 pounds. If he had both his hands inside the bed of his truck, he was likely standing on his tippy toes trying to reach over the side, trying to grab the jug of coolant. I'm 6'1" and had a pickup truck for years, so I'm pretty familiar with how I can maneuver whilst having both hands inside the bed of the truck. And I'm quite sure that if Hunter Brittain had both hands inside the bed of his truck, he was definitely not moving or approaching on Deputy Davis. Perhaps inching his way along the side of the truck at best, but certainly not in a threatening manner of any kind. One thing I'm pretty certain of, though, is that Hunter Brittain's hands were either just coming up out of the truck, but still a little inside when Deputy Davis shot him, or Hunter did raise both hands and was shot before he turned to face Deputy Davis. Because we can also see in the coroner's report that Hunter Brittain was shot through the arm and neck, and only one shot was fired, so that shot went through his arm before hitting his neck, which means he never turned to face Deputy Davis at any point before being shot. And the jug of coolant that Hunter was trying to grab landed on the ground beside him. Now, something else I find interesting is that Deputy Davis thought that Hunter Brittain was going to kill him, and he feared for his life. Now, see that mountain of a man in the middle there? That's Deputy Davis, and I'd estimate him to be around 6'4" or 6'5" maybe, and anywhere from 260 pounds, maybe even 270 pounds. The bigger guy beside him looks like he's about 6'1" and 220 or 230 pounds. Anyways, the point is, this guy's huge, and he's a cop, and he's armed, and for some reason, he feared for his life from little Hunter Brittain, who's less than half his size, unarmed. I mean, that would be like Chewbacca being afraid of that little courier droid on the Death Star. And yeah, I know size doesn't matter and all that jazz, but this footage was the first time I saw Deputy Davis and realized how large this shaved Wookiee of a deputy actually is, and I immediately thought of Chewbacca being led through the Death Star. And we know Luke's a little short for a stormtrooper. And in this scene, this dude's Luke. And like Luke, He too is a little short for a state trooper. But anyways, I was very surprised to see that this giant of a man was terrified and feared for his life from an unarmed teenager posing no threat. But maybe Deputy Davis actually did fear for his life. Remember I said earlier I think he panicked and shot Hunter Brittain out of that panic. And maybe he had reason to panic? Nothing to do with Hunter Brittain, of course, but something else. Hidden away and unseen, but very much real. Something that most people wouldn't think of as being an issue with a trained and qualified professional such as a sheriff's deputy with the rank of sergeant. Having a look through the family's 18-page lawsuit, launched in June 2022, against Deputy Davis, Sheriff Staley, and the Lonoke County Sheriff's Department, there was quite a bit in there, and I love that they added this into the notes and references that usually gets added to the bottom of pages on legal documents. And they remind all parties involved, in a complaint, a plaintiff is only required to plead facts and not legal theories. And they're citing from a previous precedent, which is how the court system works. So this is all very true. And among some of the facts that they've outlined in their lawsuit, or complaint, include that Sheriff John Staley knew that Deputy Davis suffered from a mental illness during his employment. Sheriff John Staley knew that Deputy Davis was required to take prescribed medications for his mental illness. Sheriff Staley knew that if Deputy Davis failed to take his medication as prescribed, he would not be emotionally stable and would be a danger to the public. Sheriff Staley did not supervise Deputy Davis to ensure that he took his prescribed medication as required. Sheriff Staley's failure to supervise Deputy Davis's known mental health issue permitted Davis to patrol for approximately 2 weeks, including the date that Davis shot and killed Hunter. Deputy Davis's failure to take his medication as prescribed directly caused his emotional instability that caused him to unlawfully shoot and kill Hunter. Wow, so Deputy Michael Davis has a diagnosed mental illness, which he needs to take medication for. It's not mentioned specifically what illness Deputy Davis suffers from, but apparently it is material fact that he does suffer from a mental illness that requires a regular medication schedule to keep under control. None of the news outlets mentioned anything about that anywhere. Not that I saw anyways. Maybe they didn't know? And remember Judge Barbara Elmore sealed the affidavit in the case? Well, that's not all she did.
Right now in Lonoke County, our reporter is inside the courtroom. Cameras are banned there, so we don't know. We're only getting updates when the reporter can leave the room. No cameras are allowed in the courtroom. Live tweeting is not allowed in the courtroom. Of course, Twitter is a pretty good way for us to get information from our reporter in the courtroom, but that has been banned. So we only have the opportunity to get updates from the reporter when the reporter ultimately leaves the courtroom.
And there's some good old Arkansas judicial transparency for you, brought to you by Judge Elmore. So it's hard to know exactly what evidence was entered and what wasn't. But as I said earlier, it turns out that it wouldn't really matter what evidence was entered, as in my opinion, the fix was already underway. Remember, Deputy Michael Davis was charged with manslaughter. And then, this happened.
And good day to you. We're coming across our digital platforms for a special report. We're just getting word that a jury has found former Lonoke County Sheriff Sergeant Michael Davis guilty on negligent homicide charges, not guilty on manslaughter. This is a case that has grabbed the state's attention and, quite frankly, the country. I want to bring you now to live pictures outside that courtroom where we have seen a little bit of activity from that area. I want to give you a perspective on what's happening there. We are awaiting the judge's sentencing decision.
So he was charged with manslaughter, but the jury instead convicted him on negligent homicide? How did that happen? Well, before the jury went to deliberate, Judge Elmore gave what's called instructions to the jury, which unfortunately is a regular practice in courtrooms. And as we can see from Michael Davis's appeal he would launch later in 2023, the jury was instructed on both manslaughter and negligent homicide, as well as on the defense of justification with respect to the charge of manslaughter. Now, looking at manslaughter, and I've trimmed out the sections and subsections relevant to the case. But here's what I see as applicable. The person causes the death of another person under the influence of extreme emotional disturbance. Then again, we don't know exactly what evidence was entered. But that's not going to matter, as Judge Barbara Elmore instructed the jury on both manslaughter and negligent homicide, as well as justification with respect to manslaughter. And remember, juries are made up of normal, regular, everyday people, not legal experts. But to sum it up, Judge Barbara Elmore's instructions basically forced the jury into playing semantics with the definitions of the words reckless versus the word negligent. But of course the bigger difference is that negligent homicide is only a misdemeanor and not a felony, and only has a maximum jail sentence of 1 year, whereas the manslaughter conviction carries a sentence between 3 and 10 years. And I believe that this is why Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips, who was appointed by Judge Elmore, don't forget, didn't offer a plea deal to Deputy Michael Davis. He knew it was coming. If he really wanted to land a felony charge against Deputy Michael Davis, he would have offered something, like, okay, plead guilty to the manslaughter charge, and we'll guarantee you only get the minimum sentence. But Special Prosecutor Phillips didn't offer any plea deal. And instead, we see Judge Elmore instructing the jury pretty much to decide between reckless versus negligent.
I want to get to our legal analyst here, Kelly Ward. She is a former prosecutor. She's now a defense attorney. Kelly Ward, good morning to you. And can you, if you can, kind of explain to people the difference here between manslaughter and negligent homicide? Because negligent homicide has a very serious tone to it. But the negligent homicide is a misdemeanor. It is not a felony compared to a manslaughter charge.
That's correct. And these are actually, when you said explain the difference, negligent and reckless are very, they're hard concepts for attorneys to grasp and then explain to a jury, and then the judge instructing the jury and the jury going through the instructions back in the deliberations. So the difference between manslaughter and negligent homicide in the statute is the mental state. The mental state in manslaughter is reckless. Did someone act recklessly in causing the death of another person? For negligent homicide, the mental state is negligent. And that's something more than what you hear in civil cases where, and maybe if a car ran a stop sign and hit another car, you might say, well, they were negligent. It's a different type of negligence in a criminal case. It's sometimes been described as super negligence. And basically, it's the failure to perceive a known and unjustifiable risk. So when you look at reckless definition, and I don't want to get too technical, but the reckless definition is a conscious disregard of a known and substantial risk. So negligence would be failure to perceive that risk. So, I mean, when you're explaining these to the jury, it can get kind of cumbersome because the definitions have a bunch of legal terms in them. But ultimately, the jury thought that it was a negligent act rather than a reckless act. So what that means is they convicted him of an A misdemeanor. An A misdemeanor carries a sentence of up to 1 year in jail and a fine of up to $2,500. Whereas if you look at the manslaughter, the felony, which was what was charged, the top charge, it is a C felony, which would carry punishment of 3 years to 10 years in the Department of Corrections and a fine of up to $10,000. So there's a substantial difference in the penalty here.
So like I say, it didn't matter whether Deputy Davis shouted commands or not, or whether Hunter Brittain had his hands inside of the bed of his truck or already raised. None of that would matter. Because when the jury was given their instructions from Judge Elmore, and then decided to go with the negligent homicide, the most punishment Deputy Davis could receive would be a maximum of 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. So now we're just awaiting the jury's decision on sentencing, and it's the jury that decides the sentence. The judge can override the jury's decision, but in most cases that doesn't happen.
We're getting more breaking news right now. The sentencing phase is over. The sentencing now 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine.
So the jury gave Deputy Davis the maximum they could under a negligent homicide conviction.
Of course, the family there saying that the special prosecutor, Jeff Phillips, did everything that he could in getting that felony.
He did everything he could? Looks to me like he did everything that he could to not get a felony conviction. Like not offering a plea deal that could have instantly guaranteed one, for example, if Davis had have accepted. And we can easily see that Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips was totally disappointed in the sentencing as well. He didn't want Deputy Davis to receive any jail time at all. Listen to what he says and watch his face at the end of this clip.
A case that was difficult for everyone involved came to a close today. After 3 days of testimony, a jury has found former Lonoke County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Davis guilty of negligent homicide in the death of 17-year-old Hunter Brittain.
The jury also decided Davis's sentence, 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Prosecuting attorney Jeff Phillips says the state is fine with the verdict, but the sentencing wasn't what they expected.
We were a bit surprised about the sentencing in that they were out about 20 minutes and came back with the maximum sentence.
Did you catch that? The only thing missing was him rolling his eyes around and adding a pff in there as well, which if you listen closely, he actually does almost start to do that when he says, pff, 20 minutes.
We were a bit surprised about the sentencing in that they were out about 20 minutes and came back with the maximum sentence.
And we can clearly see the disappointment in his words, body language, and mannerisms. And he's supposed to be the prosecutor. Maybe this is why he's so disappointed?
You know, this is potentially dating back to some of our records. It would appear that this is the first law enforcement officer in the state of Arkansas to be convicted of a death in the line of duty. So that is something we're still doing research on, but it appears that that is the case. And the fact that that happened here today is certainly historic, and it is a milestone decision by this Lonoke County jury.
So, wow, so many deaths over so many decades, and every single one of them was, I suppose, justified? A perfect record for Arkansas until now. And even then the officials involved maneuvered from what should have been, in my opinion, a felony conviction to a misdemeanor conviction. Which also means that Michael Davis will still be eligible to be able to work in law enforcement again and carry a weapon. And of course Michael Davis's lawyer, Robert Newcomb, was disappointed as he wanted not guilty verdicts on both counts.
Even though it's not the ending he wanted, defense attorney Robert Newcomb says juries often go with the lesser charge.
I was hoping for a not guilty verdict on both charges.
Well, weren't you the one who told me all those many years ago at the shopping mall that you can't always get what you want? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was you. And a note to parents out there in central Arkansas. If you ever take your kids to the mall or somewhere to see Santa, and this guy is your Santa, remember how he thinks and reacts.
Reaction is slower than action. So if you always wait till you actually see a gun in somebody's hand, you're probably going to be dead.
My advice to you is that when your kids approach this particular Santa, just make sure they do so with their hands up. Anyways, overall, what justice did we actually see for Hunter Brittain? After everything we've went through, plus plenty more we didn't, Deputy Davis got 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine on a misdemeanor conviction. And that's it. Hunter's grandmother, Rebecca Payne, wanted to see a felony conviction. She didn't even necessarily want to see Michael Davis go to jail, but was more concerned that he get a felony conviction so he couldn't be in law enforcement anymore.
What did you think when that verdict came out?
I was
was not happy. All I wanted from day one is for him to get a felony where he could not be in law enforcement again and carry a weapon. That's all I asked for. We even wanted to let him go with a long-term probation, but we wanted that felony charge. Now what's going to happen? Are people going to have to fear for their life again? Once he gets back, because you know he'll go back to the force.
And I think it's awesome to see how Hunter's grandmother, Rebecca Payne, was so composed and holding herself together, and she seemed to handle and view everything with genuine compassion and caring for others. She knows Michael Davis suffers from a mental illness, and that this is likely the root cause of everything. And she's not all vindictive and wants to put Michael Davis away for life and all that. Instead, she seems rather sympathetic, and was more concerned for the safety of others, and just wanted to make sure Michael Davis couldn't get another job where he can carry a gun. And of course, the system failed her on that. And remember what we saw earlier in part 3 of this series, with former Benton police officer Kyle Ellison shooting and killing 17-year-old Keagan Schweikle. And Ellison went on to become an Arkansas state trooper and would go on to kill 22-year-old Brian Brooks. All because Brian was driving with his high beams on. And don't forget, we saw Trooper Ellison actually get awards for his actions. Actions that included killing Brian Brooks. So yeah, even though Michael Davis was convicted and received a 1-year jail sentence, he can still be a cop again. And of course, even though he got a slap on the wrist for punishment, in my opinion, as we saw earlier, he would go on to appeal his conviction. And that's part of the process, and to be expected. And we see his lawyer, Robert Claus Newcomb, is planning to challenge Judge Barbara Elmore's instructions given to the jury as part of the appeal, which, as we see, was denied in September of 2023. And apparently this paved the way for him to begin serving his sentence. And today, Michael Davis is a free man. And after looking around, the latest information I could find on Michael Davis was in this Facebook posting. And while I don't personally know the poster, I do know who the poster is, and they're usually pretty good with the info they post. Anyways, they write, this cop was sentenced to 1 year in his own jail, was immediately made a trustee, and released early to walk the streets of Lonoke. So it looks like Michael Davis didn't serve the full year of his sentence, and he was made a trustee? I'm not sure what that's about, but hopefully it doesn't involve the use of any firearms. I certainly wouldn't trustee him with another gun ever again. Now, as for the family's lawsuit they filed in 2022, as of this recording at the end of May 2025, the case is still ongoing, so hopefully the family will see something good come from this case at the least. And, unlike Chris Cuomo,
I'm going to follow this one.
If I hear of any updates, I'll definitely post something to keep you, the viewers and good people of the society, up to date. And something else that's not lost on me in this whole convoluted story is that the officials in this case seemed to do what they could to minimize the situation Deputy Michael Davis found himself in, with things like beating around the bush about the body cam footage for a week before announcing there is none, or the prosecutor's office still communicating with the state police after recusing themselves, or waiting more than 2 months to even lay a charge, and not offering a plea deal, which could have gotten a felony conviction, or sealing the records in the case from public view and not allowing cameras or any communications of any kind during the trial, and so on. And we end up seeing a guy who shot and killed an unarmed teenager, Hunter Brittain, get what should have been a manslaughter felony conviction turned into a misdemeanor with only a year in jail. Now contrast that to when Aaron Spencer is forced to find and defend his kidnapped 14-year-old daughter from a known predator, having to kill him in the process. And it's these same officials involved. And they're trying to throw Aaron Spencer in jail for as long as they can. And we even see Judge Barbara Elmore bringing her brand of transparency to the case, again, with a gag order. So, they protect a guy who shot and killed unarmed teenager Hunter Brittain for no reason at all. And then they go after a hero because he protected his daughter from a predator and would-be murderer. Right. But then again, remember, we're dealing in Arkansas jurisprudence here. And you're really not going to want to miss the next episode.